What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Video Game Book Club. I'm Daniel, and that of course is my Jeff to my Ness, my Lloyd to my Ninten, my BFF5 ever, Clay. Today we're going to begin our journey through the Earthbound series by playing Earthbound Beginnings. Let's begin our journey.
5 years ago, we started on YouTube, but 4 years ago, we more or less launched our namesake series with our very first playthrough of Earthbound for the Super Nintendo. And while we'll have more about that game next time, we thought there's no better way to celebrate our beginnings than by experiencing the beginning of the series with Earthbound Beginnings on the Wii U.
Clay, brain hurt so hard. Don't understand, mother? Earthbound? Please help!
It's okay, Daniel. Let me walk you through it. Earthbound Beginnings is the American release name for the very first Mother game, which was released in Japan in 1989 for the Famicom and was simply called Mother. Mother was then worked on for release in America and even for most part completed but never released here in the States. Earthbound, which was released here in America on the Super Nintendo, is the Japanese Mother 2, and is the only game in the series to be officially released in America, that is until Earthbound Beginnings, and the original North American Mother prototype was eventually discovered, uploaded to the internet, and became known as Earthbound Zero in the fan community. That is basically the version that would later be released on the Wii U Virtual Console as Earthbound Beginnings. Do you get it?
Oh, I gotcha. So I just have to play the beginning of Earthbound. So like 5 hours and I'm done. Sounds great. Can't wait to get back in there with Ness and the gang.
Well, it will be a little longer than that, since this isn't actually just the beginning of Earthbound, but the beginnings of the series itself, which I literally just said. Before Ness and gang saved the world from the monstrous Gygus, there was Ninten, another young boy that looks, well, he looks basically like Ness, but 8-bit, not 16-bit. You'll travel around collecting 8 melodies for the mysterious Queen Mary of Magicant. Queen Mary tasks you with finding the 8 melodies and to come back and play them for her, as she has forgotten them. Along the way, you'll meet up with a nerdy kid that was getting bullied named Lloyd, a psychic girl named Anna, and a tough-talking Teddy who looks like he's straight out of Grease, the musical, not the country. With these new friends in tow and the help of some townsfolk, you'll discover the 8 melodies and maybe even save the world. Maybe.
Earthbound Beginnings looks amazing for an NES title, and seeing how it originally came out so late in the console's life, less than a year before the SNES, it makes sense. Character sprites are super fun, and you'll meet a lot of NPCs that exude character even though they were made for such an early system. The use of color is much appreciated. Although the NES had a limited palette, Beginnings is just another example that the designers of the day appear to have taken limitation as more of a challenge than a hindrance. You'll see a lot of similar designs if you played the SNES Earthbound first, and getting to see how those designs originated was a real joy. It really took me back to seeing some of the older Final Fantasy games for the first time, and much like how the enemies are wonderfully crafted in the Final Fantasy battle screens, Earthbound Beginning sets a wonderful foundation for its sequel.
And it's not just in how the game looks, but also in how it sounds. You'll notice many of the same melodies and motifs throughout Beginnings as there was in Earthbound. These songs, which first made their debut in Beginnings, would go on and become some of the best music in JRPG history and on the NES where they originated. They not only hold up, but they actually thrive. Music has always been one of the most important parts of the JRPG genre. No matter if we're talking about the 8-bit NES, early PS1, or modern day, music can set the tone and emotion of a scene more than just about anything else in the game. JRPGs are normally long games with dozens of songs to fill out impressive soundtracks that range from moody and dark to upbeat and fast-paced. Earthbound Beginning sets a high watermark for the NES and goes toe-to-toe with the original Final Fantasy soundtrack. While Final Fantasy clearly has the more iconic soundtrack, with some songs being redone dozens of times for new games and spin-offs, Beginnings is no slouch and the music will help carry you through the game.
Between Beginnings' look and sound, it's definitely top-of-class material for NES JRPGs, but I have some real serious issues with how it plays. Beginnings, unlike Earthbound, sticks with traditional random encounters of, say, Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy, which is fine. I like random battles. But knowing where the series goes in the next installment still made this a disappointment. Some of the things that Beginnings does pass on to its sequel that also aggravated me when we played Earthbound originally is tiny personal inventories and the first-person view for battles. I just cannot stand how small the inventories are in Beginnings. It's so incredibly restrictive and penalizing. With the game's incredible difficulty spikes, it's next to impossible at times to properly kit yourself out for upcoming areas. I spent a lot of time fighting a few battles, retreating to a safe place to heal, then going back in. I'm pretty sure the Beginnings is actually a very short game, but because of the multitude of random mountains and valleys and difficulties, I spent much of the game grinding out not 1 or 2 levels, but sometimes up to a dozen at a time. And this wasn't for bosses who I would steamroll over after grinding. This was just for the regular enemies. Beginnings makes much of its regular combat much harder than a better balanced title would, and if it wasn't for wanting to celebrate our anniversary with this trio of reviews, I would have put the game down pretty early.
You'll also be fighting in the same front-facing view as the sequel, which we didn't like then and we still aren't too hot on now. I'm with Daniel on that the profile view used in most JRPGs is superior, or if you really want to do front-facing, at least include character sprites that are looking at the enemy, like in Lufia. The front-facing view still just gives me such a sense of detachment from the characters. Add in the fact that Beginnings doesn't have the wonderful rolling HP mechanic of its sequel, combat feels much flatter than in the titles to come. Much of what Beginnings does is borrowed from the titles that came before it, and where Earthbound felt like a pseudo-parody of the genre with top-notch writing, Beginnings sticks too close to its inspiration, but does still include much better writing than its contemporaries.
Earthbound Beginning starts off with a young couple, George and Maria, who disappeared mysteriously only for George to return 2 years later. The game begins 80 years after these mysterious events, as Ninten's home is attacked by a poltergeist. Ninten's father calls the house and tells you that your great-grandfather researches psychic powers and there might be something in the basement to help. Also, good luck on your adventure and don't forget to come home occasionally. And there's the setup. Unlike Earthbound, which starts with a meteor falling to Earth, Buzz giving you a basic rundown of who the bad guy is, and then the game opening up, Beginnings throws you into a battle and funnels you out into the world. You'll eventually get some more direction once you reach mysterious world of Magicant. In Magicant, you'll meet Queen Mary, who asks for you to find the 8 melodies that make up a song that she has forgotten.
You'll begin collecting your party members. Lloyd is a nerdy science kid, much like Jeff from the sequel, who doesn't have psychic powers but can use bottle rockets. Anna, who is much like Ninten, is psychic and acts as his love interest in a game about kids that are way too young to have love interests, but who cares? And for a short time, the greaser Teddy, who's just as likely to shiv you as to shake your hand. The story itself doesn't really seem to pick up till near the end, with some of the melodies coming from events that seem more like random chance than actual quests. Take for instance the very first melody. During the poltergeist attack on Ninten's house, a doll in your sister's room is possessed and you can fight it. After the attack is finished, if you talk to your sister again, she'll say you should check the doll. When you do, you'll learn the first melody. What happens if you don't talk to your sister? Personally, I don't know, but getting the first melody along with some of the others makes the game feel less like a reward and more happenstance than I would like it to feel. And that could be exactly what they were going for. Break the mold of dungeon, boss, key. That could be exactly what they wanted. The feeling that sometimes you just got lucky by talking to the right person or doing the right thing to get that key piece of information. While it's an interesting thought and experiment to shake it up like that, Beginnings just doesn't land it in a satisfying way.
We're going to get into some spoilers now, so I just want to say, Beginnings is kind of like looking through a broken, Vaseline-covered mirror at the poor reflection of what was to come. Where Earthbound is in many ways a masterpiece JRPG that everyone should give a chance, Beginnings is only for the hardcore of the hardcore. I at no time had fun with my playthrough. I admire what the game tried to do on the NES, and I'd say it's a whole lot more fleshed out than a game like the original Dragon Quest. But having a more fleshed out story doesn't make a game good. We play a lot of old games because a lot of them are still worth playing. Earthbound Beginnings is not one of those games.
The last quarter of the game is where you'll get most of the story and a better idea of how Beginnings ties into Earthbound. You'll eventually climb Mount Etoy. Mount Etoy, okay, cool. Only to be attacked by a robot. Lloyd will show up in a tank you previously used and destroy the robot, hurting Teddy as well. Ninten, Anna, and Lloyd will discover an underwater research lab that was used by Ninten's great-grandfather. In it will be another robot designed by George to protect Ninten. This robot will give its life to save yours and leaves behind the 7th melody. With the 7th melody, you'll return to Magicant and talk to Queen Mary, who upon hearing the first 7, remembers the 8th. Queen Mary reveals that she is actually Maria, George's wife. Maria reminisces about the alien that they raised together, and she would sing the song made of the 8th melodies to.
Queen Mary and Magicant fade away, and you'll soon find your great-grandfather's grave. Near the grave is a cave that Maria's consciousness will open for you, so you can face off with the evil alien that has been terrorizing the world since the beginning of the game. Of course, the alien turns out to be the child that Maria raised, and is none other than the big bad from Earthbound himself, Gigas. Out of love for Ninten's family, Gigas offers to let him live and return to his home planet with him. But the rest of humanity has got to go.
Ninten, of course, says no, and you'll begin battle with the deadliest foe you fought so far. Unless you haven't played Earthbound yet, then you know exactly how this fight is going to go. Instead of prayer, Gigas is defeated with song. Singing the 8 melodies will make Gigas remember Maria and cause him a pain that all the bats and bottle rockets in the world couldn't. Emotional damage. Gigas will vow to return and flees Earth, leaving it safe for now. There's an ominous stinger at the end of the credits of Ninten's dad alluding to a sequel.
I really wanted to like this game. Earthbound was so special when we played it all those years ago. And while we were so excited to kick off the channel, we were also marred with issues and mistakes. Sickness, time constraints, the reality of our busy lives all weighed us down, and in basically every other way still do. We began Video Game Book Club as a fun avenue to express our love for video games and a way to stay connected to each other as our lives continue to evolve and grow in new and exciting directions. Earthbound was such a wonderful choice for our first review. And I wished, as we got nostalgic about our own beginnings, that Earthbound would be a fun way to memorialize those days. Instead, the game was more frustrating than it needed to be, and incredibly disappointing when measured up to its sequel. Don't play Beginnings, unless you are a hardcore, gotta know for yourself kind of person. But you can totally go back and watch some of our old videos, because I'm sure they all totally hold up. Don't play this game. And I just want to make sure if you watched that video and you thought at any time, hey, Daniel sounds like he's having a good time. Well, you're wrong. I wasn't. I didn't. I don't recommend this game.
Thanks for sticking around to the end of this video. Here's 2 more videos just in case you enjoyed what you saw in this one, and if you really enjoyed it, feel free to like and subscribe, and also click that little bell icon just so you get updated every time we post a new video. And until next time, take care.